So today I'm joined by Shaundai Person. She is a senior software engineer at Netflix. When I heard her story and journey of getting into web dev and finally landing a job at Netflix, I was pretty excited to talk to her. So I reached out and I said, Shaundai, we should talk about it because I think a lot of people would benefit from your story. I also find some similarities between her journey and mine. So some personal interest or surprises there for me as well. So, Shane, thank you very much for joining me on this session.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome. So, for folks who don't know you, they might have seen episodes of you. That's actually how I got to know you from the episode that you did on For Devs Code or the competition you guys did on building an application at the same time. And I heard your story or backstory there, and then I became interested. So, for folks who don't know who you are, why don't you just give us a little introduction? Then we would dive back into how you ended up in this tech world.
Definitely. Yes. So I am Shaundai Person. As you referenced, I was on a guest on one of Jason Langsdorf's new initiatives, Four Devs, One App Idea, where we have four devs competing, not really competing, but we're competitive. So we turned it into a competition and we have an idea, and it's an interesting show where you get to see the creativity and how people interpret, four different devs interpret the same idea, like build a leaderboard, for example. So by day, I am a senior software engineer at Netflix. I've been there just over 3 years. I'm on the productivity UI team, which is basically, and I'll get into more of that, but it's pretty much what it sounds like. So we build the systems and the software that keep other Netflix engineers productive. So my customers are myself and my colleagues, and I love it there. I love my team, and I love the projects that I'm working on. And of work, I am a conference speaker. I speak at a lot of conferences, typically about React, TypeScript, and the front end ecosystem. And I also have been working on all different types of content, just experimenting with things from being on other people's shows to dabbling in creating my own course as well. And I'm also a mom. I'm a mom of one boy who's going to be 7 next week, which is crazy.
Interesting. Okay, so a lot to unpack there, or a lot of questions for me. The first thing that came to my mind is what is a day in the life of a senior software engineer at Netflix? What do you do? Like you mentioned you were working on the productivity UI team, but how is your day? Like, what is it that you're working with, if you can share? What technologies do you use? Are you working on the front end? Do you work on the back end? If you are, is it React? Or like, how does it look like working in a FANG company?
Yeah, my days are, this might be unique to Netflix, but my days are pretty unstructured. There's a good deal of meetings, but outside of that, they are pretty, it's like I can create the day that I want. We operate in the best interest of Netflix. And I know this sounds kind of like a marketing pitch, but it's really not. This is actually what my day is like. So I'll think there's a project that I'm leading. They don't call it leads, they call it informed captains. And so I'm the person who knows the most about this project and who has taken on the leadership type of role, but we it sounds so hokey. We don't call each other leads. So the project that I'm kind of overseeing is a project where we're aggregating all of the functionality. Well, not really aggregating, but summarizing the functionality of all of these different apps that we have built in-house. There's over 35 different apps that we've built in-house to help to manage the software design lifecycle. It's things that you have to do as part of the experience of being a developer, platform tools to manage like security and dependency updates and things like that. But it's not the stuff that is the most fun. Like if you find engineering fun and you're passionate about it, most people aren't finding like dependency updates really exciting. So we're taking all of that and we're putting it together under a common interface and then giving users a seamless journey within this one platform. So to go back to answering your question, I am responsible for managing this project and making sure that we meet all of the deadlines and make appropriate estimations. And so when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what do I need to do in order to support this initiative to get us to our deadlines, or the estimates that we set? What can I do to get us there faster? So it might be coding, which I love. It might be setting up a series of meetings and talking between different teams because, like I said, I'm taking this functionality from different teams and putting it together under this common interface. So I need to rely on my partners at on other teams to help me to get like data that I need. And I'm front end, by the way. So we use React and TypeScript on my team. I also use GraphQL, and because it's an interest of mine, I've been interested in learning more of the back end too. So I'm in the process of learning some Java, and actually today reaching out to one of my back end counterparts for help. Like I want to actually write prod Java, which this will be the first time in life that I've done Java. So I'm really excited about that. But writing something that I need to consume on the front end. So it's like that, like things, it can be something that I'm interested in that supports a project that I'm working on. It can be something that's super necessary and urgent that I need to do, but my days are very varied. Yesterday was more of a day of just like heads down coding. Today is a full day of meetings, and it's all in support of this bigger project and what's in the interests of Netflix.
Makes sense. So, something that I found interesting as you were talking about your role is how you are now interested into branching off to the back end and learning something that might not be necessarily what's required for your position. And I think that's a common theme for you actually getting into tech in the first place, trying to kind of dabble into stuff that other people are doing. So, I think you have this greater sense of curiosity and you want to learn. And that has become the underlying foundation from which you have built your career. I wanted to ask initially, what would take for somebody to become a senior software engineer? So you enter as a junior software engineer. Is it the number of years? Is it the experience? Is it the type of technology that you need to learn? Or is it this other skills that you have that makes you take on a project, become the lead, actually be cross-functional to work with other teams? Now I'm imagining you're going to the back end and your position might change a year from now because now you have learned something that you didn't know before. So tell me about what does it take to grow in your position?
And I really love this question. First, before answering, I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm giving my take on what I did. I'm not giving advice on what I think everybody should do. But because I've seen there's infinite ways to get to success. Mine is only one. So my path is going to be so unique to everybody else's because I have different interests, I have different experiences, I have different surroundings and circumstances. So, and the day that I start is different from the day that you start. Just want to put that out there. But the thing that I think that that allowed me to move and move so quickly because I went from junior straight to senior, and I was never like a mid level, and I went within a year. So time is not a constraint. There were so many people telling me that this is exactly what I need to do. And this is why I say that I don't give advice like that, because everybody's going to give you advice under the lens of their own limitations and their own fears. And I don't want other people's fears and ceilings to limit my growth. So in my own head, I'm capable of whatever I put my mind to. And so I just keep on doing it. So one thing, I guess, with that said, that I think has made me successful is that I don't hear no. Like I don't hear no. I hear like, okay, this is something that I have to figure out how to get around then. If I want it, I'm gonna go after it. And that's with anything in life. I'm just like, I'm relentless. If it is something that I want, it's very clear that it's something that I want. So just this relentless attitude, even if you hear no, to be able to have kind of a short-term memory I think I've gotten a lot of practice with this from sales, but it's not like you need a sales background in order to have this level of persistence and determination. I've gotten a lot of practice hearing no. And I am the type of person, it can hurt me depending on how much emotional energy I've put into something, but it's not going to hurt me enough that I'm going to stop going for it. So one is this persistence and determination. The other one is something that you mentioned, is this level of curiosity. Before I was in engineering, I had over a decade in sales, and I was good at it. I was good at it because I was persistent, because I like talking to people, because I was good at talking to people. And I don't like to just sit in the same spot. Like where you find me now is not where I'm going to be a year from now. So I got better at it because I was just naturally the type of person that was going to grow. But it was not something that I was passionate about or interested in. And so when I thought about the different careers that were available within the sales realm, I could have stayed in sales and just gone up the sales ladder. I could have gone into sales enablement, sales management. None of that was interesting. So I was curious about none of it. Like in the beginning, I read a lot of books and that got me to where I wanted, but I think there was just this limitation. With engineering, there might be this point, but I'm really far from it. So there's just like this level of, oh my gosh, what are you working on? Oh my gosh, what are you working on? I want to do that. I want to try that. I want this. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, maybe I could add this to, and so it's quickly become to the point where like I have more ideas and exciting things that I look forward to doing than I actually have the time to do. And if you channel that type of energy into more of a strategy versus like just being a squirrel and like trying every little bit of things. If you say, okay, I'm only going to focus on this one thing or this one subset of things, you can build an exceptional career really quickly with this level of curiosity. I think engineering, at least for me, it requires a lot of that because you come into these bugs, you come into a lot of issues with, like, you think tech is or software engineering is going to be a field where you're only dealing with computers. It's really about the people. So you also have to be curious about people and interpersonal relationships. If you're not curious about that, it would have been hard for me to grow, and it would have limited my ability to grow so fast. I needed to be the type of person who approaches a problem, gets to a wall and is like, well, why is this wall here? Or how do we break this down? Versus like, yep, there's a wall, so it's time to turn around. So I think that curiosity also feeds into the whole persistence. To sum all that up, none of the stuff that I mentioned was like tech skills. So as important as tech skills, of course you need tech skills to be an engineer, right? But it's not the number one thing. I think of the coding as a commodity. I'm like, if I'm at Netflix, if I'm at a FANG company, I can imagine that everybody that's a front end engineer knows React, TypeScript, all the stuff that I know. Not everybody has the same curiosity. Not everybody has the same determination. Not everybody's great at conversations or great at doing conference talks. Your soft skills have to be the number one thing that you've got going. You have to have some unique soft skills or just some type of, I've heard the term recently, unfair advantage, which I really like, but just lean into whatever your unfair advantage is. Chances are it's not tech, because everybody has that as their advantage.
I like the way that you put it there, where everybody probably applying for the job that you got had the coding skills that you had. So at that point, it's not a differentiating factor. Maybe your problem solving skills, which is not necessarily coding and syntax, but the way you think about it, the way you structure to reach to a problem is more important if you have that or not. The fact that you are persistent enough so that you are going to encounter so many errors, but you're going to then try different ways, try different solutions, which is necessary. This is something you can't teach to somebody, to have that level of consistency, to be curious or to want to learn. And I think another unfair advantage that you have is, as you mentioned, your background in sales and being good with people. So your interpersonal skills is good. I'm assuming if you're sitting in an interview, there's a human being on the other end of this all, deciding whether or not you would be a good fit for the team. Now, coding is just one aspect of you inside of a bigger team. And I think these stuff is what often gets dismissed, or we don't pay attention to it as much. Maybe we just practice on our coding skills and not. So now that we talked about this, why don't you just tell us where you how you started. Now you mentioned how you grow in your role, but let's talk about your transition into tech, because what I found interesting there is, first of all, I find a lot of similarities within what you say. When you said there are so many things I want to do, I don't have enough time, I was like, that's me. When you said I came from sales to tech, I was like, yeah, I'm an engineering, like I was a mechanical engineer in the background, but I had done in my previous life some sales too, but then stumbled upon tech and found a passion. And I was like, I should have done this way sooner, earlier in my life. So I think it would be good to know where you got into tech and how your role or what stuff you did to get into tech, and how some of those skills is actually helping you in the position you have now.
Yeah, that's great. Ended up here kind of by fate. I was vehemently against engineering because I didn't think it was cool. I didn't think it would be my people because I was going off of stereotypes, and I'm like, well, every engineer, every software engineer has to be a man. And I mean, it wasn't this specific, but like, just like the nerds with the Coke bottle glasses and just like antisocial. And I was like, that's not me. So I stayed away from it. I ended up in sales because I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So I was an entrepreneurship major undergrad, and one of my professors told me that the best way to understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur is to start a commission only sales job. So you get the experience of like really building a book of business, putting your ability to pay bills at risk, all of the good, and you learn how to talk to people, you learn how to create value for people and to create recurring revenue, all of the business stuff, which is amazing. And that has come in handy a lot. So I'll speak on that. But in 2015, 2016, I decided to quit the workforce. So I was in sales, just kind of like slowly growing from, not really ever in title or anything like that, but just going from different company to company to make more money, like wherever they were paying the most commission and they had good products to sell. So one year I decided to quit the workforce, start my own company, and I really wanted to build an app for it or have somebody build an app, which was super expensive. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to build it myself. I started a website for it using Shopify. I thought that what I would enjoy the most would be the sales part of it, like literally going door to door, knocking on the doors of businesses to sell the stuff. And I was great at it. But what I did like the most was learning Liquid, which is Shopify's Ruby-based language to customize my site. So I'm making like little widgets and stuff. By the way, as a salesperson, I have a good sense, or I've built this good sense of like empathy for my customer and figuring out how to marry the psychology of what makes people buy with the technical product, because I was selling software for most of my sales career. So I'm adding in all this psychology stuff, like, oh, people are going to read this part first, and these colors have to go together, and I even knew accessibility, and I'm just like a wizard and all this. And I thought that what in order to become an engineer, you needed to have an advanced degree in at least computer science. But I also, for part of the time that I was selling, was software to rocket scientists. Like NASA was my customer, Blue Origin was my customer. So I'm selling to people who have these degrees in astrophysics and mathematics and all different kinds of things that I was not interested in getting a degree in. And I was like, all right, well, I guess engineering is not for me because I'm not going back to school, and I'm not going back to school for this. So fast forward a couple years after I had come back into the workforce, and I was like on Facebook or something looking at something, and there was an ad on the side of the screen for Codecademy, and there were comments underneath, and it was like, you don't have to have a computer science degree to be an engineer. Like I'm self-taught. I use Codecademy, and I was like, what? Like I didn't know careers like this existed. And so I get Codecademy very entry point, low barriers to entry because one, it's very inexpensive. Two, it's self-paced, so I can manage. I had a newborn at the time, have this demanding sales job. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I'm not going to quit my job to go through a boot camp. So I started and I loved it. Like I gave myself half an hour a day to do it. And I was up until like 2, 3 in the morning, most days, just like plugging away, making things cascade CSS to like cascade down. Yeah, I loved it. So I decided to look into it and I was like, well, I wonder if engineers make money that's comparable to salespeople. Lo and behold, they do. So that worked out. It worked out. But there have been a lot of, to answer the second part of your question, like how has my sales career helped me? It's helped me immensely. I think that this was one of the bigger fears, was that I'm going to be throwing away over a decade of career momentum if I switch. But no, all of this stuff comes in handy to this day. Like last week I was in California at our headquarters doing demos for the product that I've been working on, and I'm selling people on. I'm like demoing it because again, my customers are my colleagues, so I'm selling them on it. So I have to have this level of showmanship. Well, like I mentioned before, the practice of hearing no has it hurts, right? But it has helped me a lot because I've got the thickest skin and the shortest term memory where, like I said, people tell me no, and I'm like, all right, it sounds like we just got to move a different way, and we'll figure out how to get us both to a yes that we're happy with. So that's critical. And then being able to have that level of empathy that I got in sales, one, because it's important for your customer, right? Your customer is only paying for things as long as you're creating value for them. Because there's easy replacements for pretty much anything out there in the market. So you have to be the thing that stands out. When you're interviewing for a technical role, you are selling yourself. And so you have to figure out how to create value for a company so that they'll hire you. And then you have to continue to create value for that company so that they will keep you employed and keep you on the payroll. And then in order to like do your job, your customers have to feel like whoever it is. Like I said, my customers are my colleagues. Your customers may be external or, somebody else. You have to be able to like, okay, so as a front end engineer, I'm getting designs from my designer. I'm lucky enough to have a designer, sometimes two, right? And they're giving me these designs that they feel are pretty comprehensive for, cover different edge cases. As the engineer and the person who is basically making the interface for our customers, I need to be in tune with my customers and the way that they're going to use our tool and what problem we're solving for them so that I can make decisions in between the lines, because there's going to be things that our designers didn't think of, or there's things that they thought of but didn't, it's like a one person idea. So, they could use diversity of thought. So you need to be constantly ahead and making sure that you're like, okay, maybe I disagree with this, or maybe we should do this a little differently, or technically we can't do this. I think an easy way to get from, point A to A.1 is to do it this way. There's a lot of ways that my sales career has helped me to become a better interviewer and become a better interviewer and get jobs, but also to help me to continue to grow within my job. And it's not unique to just sales. I would say anybody that's ever done anything, it doesn't have to even be another career. Anybody that's ever done anything outside of engineering can take those skills, if you know how to use them, and turn them into a superpower that makes you more than just an engineer with tech skills.
There's so many interesting stuff in your story. And I will start with this. When you said you wanted it to go on your own in your entrepreneurial journey, and the first thing you were introduced to was a commission-only sales, I actually had that experience as well. Like the amount of volatility that you would experience as a commission-only salesperson that doesn't have a salary, so everything depends on you making a sale and getting better at it, honing in on your skills, on your interpersonal skills. And, when you hear a no, it's not just a no, you have to figure out why is there a no or what solution would best fit this. So you would expect grow very soon if you're in that environment versus a safe environment with a salary that you don't have to push yourself. It's very interesting. I've had a similar background where I was in sales in real estate. And it's very funny, Shaundai, you said the way you got into tech was actually you wanted to create a website for your business. That's exactly how I started. So I was in real estate and the templates out there were crap. So I was like, I have to build my own website. And same scenario, I reached out to see how much it's going to cost me. So if I were to get an agency to build it, websites for real estate, they have like MLS systems, map search and stuff. They're a bit more complicated than your regular websites. And they were like quoting me $50,000, $60,000. I was like, I don't have that money to just put in to build a website. So I'm going to have to do it myself. So I started, but I wasn't sure if I can do it or not, but I got it started and I was like, you know what, I'll give it like a year. And at the end, I will decide, I don't know how far I can go in a year or in 2 years. I'll do what it takes or what I can do. And we'll see what happens. Maybe I can, maybe I can't, but I can't just carry this question forever in my mind. What if I got started and I could have done it? So, and another funny thing, I started on Code Academy too. So I don't know what's going on.
Look at us.
Yeah, it's even I started end of 2019, beginning of 2020.
Me too.
Probably I've been on the same cohort there.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
We're looking at the same comments and things.
Yeah, exactly. So I started that on Code Academy. I also loved it that it was self-paced, and I gave myself a similar goal of doing it for 2 hours every day. So I was kind of learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then React there. On the other end, I was also learning about MongoDB to get to know what databases are and stuff. Through that website or that intention of building a website for a different business that I was running at the point, I fell in love in the tech and I was like, you know what, let's do this more. And the more I did it, the more I liked it. The idea of that I can just create something, have an idea and create something out of it that people can use. I can just put it out there for everybody to use, whether it's an app or a website. It just fascinated me so much that I was like, this is probably the thing for me. So what did you do after Code Academy? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. While I was doing Code Academy, I was working at a company called SalesLoft. Now, I was doing sales at SalesLoft. SalesLoft is a company that makes software for salespeople and sells software to salespeople. So I was selling software that we made to salespeople as a salesperson. This is important because I was trying to get onto their engineering team, and my strategy was to, one, get to know everybody on the team, on the engineering team, and it was maybe 100 people, maybe less than that. Get to know everybody on the team in order for my reputation to precede me. I wanted everybody to know that I was looking to move into engineering someday, and I wanted them to all have a great what do you call it, model of me in their head, that she is set to be the next engineer. She doesn't have to go through because there was we've seen somebody go through customer support and then they went to being a PM and they did this and then they did that and then they became an engineer. No, I just wanted to go straight through. So that was one. The other thing that I wanted was I wanted to learn from them in order to I thought that I was going to sell them, and this is what I did. Sell them on the fact that I knew their customers better than they did. So I was uniquely positioned to be a phenomenal junior on their team and just grow through the ranks really quickly because not only could I code, I also knew the customer, and I was able to better make these decisions. I set up meetings. We had this Slack bot called a donut, and every 2 weeks it would match you with other people within the company. If it matched me with a finance person, I was like, I don't care. But if it matched me with an engineer, I was like, let's go to Starbucks on this day and let's have a chat. And we would I would just gently introduce them to the fact that I was looking to make this career switch. So it was a very soft or warm, I guess. It was a very warm introduction to everybody within the company, which ultimately helped me to sell myself. So I'm doing Codecademy while I'm making these meetings and stuff. I'm also working with a mentor. So through my conversation, this is all part of the curiosity. I saw somebody in one of our all hands meetings who had like a screen open with some code on it. And I was like, what language is this? And he was, I forget, it was probably, so he's like, this was Ruby, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, I want to introduce you to somebody else at the company who is looking to move to engineering from sales, currently is applying for like a PM role. And so we ended up hitting it off. And then we met every week just to talk about code. And so he was like my mentor, even though he wasn't like where I wanted to be yet. He wasn't super established in his career. He hadn't even gotten his first PM role. He was still in sales. He was my mentor because he was a couple steps ahead of me. So I'm working on real world projects. I'm working on Codecademy, and I'm like chatting it up with all these engineers. There's one day where the VP of engineering messages me and he invites me to their all hands meeting, and I was like, this is suspicious. And so he invites me to their all hands meeting. They give me an award for submitting. It's a whole other part of the story, is like I kept on submitting projects to the engineering team saying like, I used our API to build this extension. This is something that our customers have been asking for, so I built it. Like, what do you think? And so they gave me an award for most projects submitted for somebody who is not in engineering, and also told me that they were opening up a junior role, so that and they were encouraging me to apply to it. So that's how I got my first engineering job. That was after Codecademy. So then after that, I didn't pick up. I mean, I have picked up Codecademy again since I've started to learn Java, but yeah, it's been like real world stuff now, like on the job.
Now you're learning by doing.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What I see in your story is like, from, if you don't know the details of it, you might think, oh, you got lucky. You were working in a company that was creating software, and you were in sales, and then they had an opening. But it's not luck. You created that luck. You created that, or you put in that hard work, proactively learning, pushing code, building extensions or softwares or whatever that was kind of relevant to that job, and then positioning yourself in a way that you'd be suitable for that junior opening. I think this may be the same approach that you are in your current job. Maybe back then you were doing it intentionally to say, okay, I want to get into this engineering role. So I want to expand my knowledge. I want to learn. I want to approach. I want to connect with these people. But now in your role now as a senior software engineer at Netflix, I see the same pattern. Maybe you don't intentionally want to do that, but you are learning about backend stuff. In your role, maybe nobody thinks about, expanding into, now becoming a backend. You're like, I'm settled. I'm a senior software engineer. I'm just growing in my own lane here. But what you're doing also is going to increase your surface lock. And you're going to have another opportunity coming in that you can take advantage of because you've been learning Java now. It's the same thing here. Had you not, cared about learning something new, because there was no guarantee you're going to get into engineering. When you or me or anybody else is starting, we all don't know. But you just put in what you need, and then when the opportunity comes, if you're prepared, you can just take advantage of it. Then usually what I have found is when you do the hard work, you're going to find opportunities, or opportunities are going to find you.
Yes.
One way or another. So it's a very interesting story you have there, getting into becoming a senior software engineer in, what is it, like 5 years?
No, I'll hit my 4 years in a month.
4 years.
Yeah, I'm about
Even
to
crazier.
hit. I'm about to hit 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other thing that you kind of touched on that sparked an idea is like, not only is it doing the work to create opportunities and constantly, staying curious, It's also talking about the stuff that you're doing. I recently saw, I think it was like an Instagram reel or something, and it was a woman, she was talking for a long time, but the whole story was that she was like, in order to, I'll summarize it. The whole story was that in order to get these opportunities, or sorry, your ability to succeed and grow is 100% contingent on your ability to be seen, or your desire to be seen. So you can be seen failing, you can be seen being unloved, being ugly, like nasty to people, or you can you can be seen as being a kind person, a helping person, a generous person, a caring person, an ambitious person. But you all have, like, it has to be out there in order for people to take advantage. And one thing I so scared to do, and one of the reasons that I was afraid to do it was because I didn't want to, if it didn't work out, I didn't want everybody to have seen me put my best out there and then watch me fail. I also didn't want to alarm my sales customers thinking that, I was only half in and wasn't really paying attention to their accounts.
Yeah.
So I started a Twitter because that was the only place that my colleagues weren't located. Like, everybody was on LinkedIn selling. All my customers were on LinkedIn getting pitched to. And so Twitter was a place where nobody that I knew was. That, luckily enough, happened to be the place where all of the tech folks, yeah, they live.
Hang out. Yeah.
Right. So I was able to slowly and organically build this amazing network of people who were there supporting me. And I would just, like, not just post about tech, because a lot of my tweets were about my son and just everyday life, but people were seeing me as a full person. They were seeing me as this person who's trying to learn and grow, and every day just at it, like getting those little GitHub squares and then posting about, like, okay, well, this is what I did with my son. So it's like I'm living my actual life, but I'm also really dead focused on this certain goal. And people love that. And, and getting to watch my journey, I think resonated with a lot of people who were trying to do the same things, but also was attractive to the people who were hiring. And it wasn't me just bugging them like, oh, let me know when you have an opening, or can you refer me to this company? There was never any of that. And I have a lot of respect for people who approach me, my colleagues, and, other people that I know in the same way, where it's just like curiosity, like, this is something that I'm so fascinated with, tell me about what you're doing, or let me show you what I'm working on. And it's just this exciting thing versus like this very strange and laser focused and like not human centric, give me a
Yeah.
job type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, your ability to be seen as a whole person was one skill.
Also matters. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because I 100% agree with that. And actually have lived that experience. When you do the hard work, you have to do it in public and you have to, be able to fail and make a fool out of yourself in the beginning because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. You're going to look foolish in the beginning. When any of us start anything new, we're going to look foolish, and it's the courage to be able to take that for a little while before you become good at it. So when I started gaining some momentum, I was always documenting what I was learning. So let's say I was going through Codecademy and I was just writing down what I was learning. And then at some point, instead of just keeping my notes on Google Docs, I published them as blog posts on my site. I was like, maybe somebody else just finds this useful. People started reading because I was tracking the view on the blog post, and I was like, so folks, maybe go through the same pain points or problems that I faced, I don't know, doing this thing or that. And then the same thing with the video. So at some point I was like, you know what, I'm writing this note down, but what if I just create a video, explain what I learned or how I solved the problem? So if I want to come back to this technology 3 months from now, I'll watch my own video instead of going through the docs again. And maybe other people find it useful. And Shauna, you won't believe, like, this conversation comes because I started this YouTube channel, came across your channel, your work, and then we connected. The amount of people that I got to know, the amount of companies that I'm now working with, opportunities just by putting myself out there is just even as important as doing the hard work. because you can just hard work in your own cave and nobody knows about you, about your product or anything. You have to put yourself out there, and you have to be okay to fail and to be foolish for some time before you actually get a hang of it and people start recognizing you. But the amount of opportunities or connections that you would have is just insane.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so interesting stuff. We talked about how you got here. Why don't we talk about also where you're going? You mentioned that you are trying to create some content on your own, different styles maybe. Do you have a YouTube channel currently?
I do. I
You
do.
do.
Yep. So YouTube slash at Shaundai. Everything, luckily, is at Shaundai except for my TikTok, which is Shaundai P, the first initial of my last name. Yeah, but you can find me pretty easily by my first name. So yes, I'm trying to do more content creation. The thing is really time. And I've actually set out this last quarter of the year. So it's October now. I've set out this last quarter of the year to really laser focus on my work and setting up a productivity space in my house. So you know that I recently moved, and so I'm setting up this new office space to just like reflect peace and all the good things. And so I'm working on that, but I've also been like super laser focused on shipping products and getting things out the door and then planning for Q1 for work. Once the new year starts, I'm gonna start making more YouTube content. So videos, short form for TikTok and long form for YouTube.
Beautiful.
And I've been working on this TypeScript course as well for a long time. So I really want to get it finished and out the door. The big thing with this TypeScript course is that it's a subtle differentiation, I guess, from other TypeScript courses. One differentiation is that it's going to be catered toward people who are working in the enterprise. So this is people who want to get jobs where they're using TypeScript in production and they're using TypeScript along with other colleagues versus like their own individual projects. So it's going to be like sustainable and manageable for multiple people type TypeScript code. Very subtle difference. And then the other difference is that it's going to be, I want to make a course that people can take. And it sounds weird to say that. I'll explain what I mean. A lot of courses, I'll buy them and then I won't finish them, either because they're too long, because I get to a point where this is like, they just were trying to fill in a whole bunch of content so that it's worth the whatever you're paying, $500 that you're paying and stuff. Content that's not necessarily relevant to what you need. I want this to be digestible in an amount of time that you can take it. Also, it just stays interesting so that you finish the course. That's what I want, is not you just buying a course just to have a course. I want you to finish the course. So those will be two big things that I put into that.
Very interesting. I would be really interested in a TypeScript course coming from somebody that's actually working on TypeScript day in and day out in their work environment. And you mentioned the differentiation as to where if you're just working on a project yourself or in a smaller team, your TypeScript setup may be different from when you want to set it up in a standard way for a bigger organization to all work within this like process. So that's interesting to see that take. Now, is it going to be in the context of React, or is it not? Is it just TypeScript in isolation?
It'll be both. It'll be some TypeScript with just, basic vanilla JavaScript, but then a large majority will be with React.
With React.
Yeah. Yeah. And that decision, I mean, again, it's going to be both, but that decision is mainly centered in the fact that this is for the enterprise. And you don't see a lot of big businesses that are just using vanilla JavaScript anymore. Usually they're using something like a React.
Yeah. That's very interesting. So in terms of content creation, I think you do really, really good because you're a very relatable person. I think when you create, what the content would be like? Is it like coding, programming? Or is it going to be like the day in your life? Is it like more entertaining type of content or educational type of content?
Great questions. I will do what's interesting to me, which is generally stuff that is related to tech, but in a fun way. So I'm big on analogies. So there will be some programming teaching, but it's going to be in analogies, and it's meant to be able to give people like myself who didn't come from a CS background the ability and an easy gateway to get into tech and feel super enabled right away. That's my big mission. There will be some content, and this has been on the backlog for a long time, but kind of what we talked about, but really fleshed out. What skills did I learn as a salesperson that have made it much easier for me to shape my job as an engineer? I think there's so many great parallels and so many ways that you can leverage sales skills without having to have like a decade of sales experience. So I want to share that information with people and help them out with their interviews and things like that. So
I think it would be interesting to bring your own specific taste and experience into the mix, because that actually is going to be valuable for people, not only because everybody has a different teaching style and learning style, but you are unique in your own experience from the background, from your type of personality, and then in tech. From me, I have a different background, different experience, maybe different style of teaching and talking that would be interesting to different people, I guess. So it's interesting to see your content creation on that front as well with the courses. We're going to include links to your channels, to your YouTube channel, your Twitter and stuff. Any final thing you want to say before we wrap up?
so grateful to be here, and I'm so grateful to have met a kindred spirit alike in so many ways. But no, that's all. Yeah, just find me on any platform again. Shaundai, you can find me pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, we would include the links as well. It was great talking to you, Shaundai, getting to know you even more than I've already known. I hope to see more content from you in future. Maybe one time you would interview me on your channel if you decided to do podcasts. But yeah, thank you very much again for joining me on the show. And that's a wrap, folks, for this video. If you have any questions, like always, hit me up in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.